The Valaxians were, by all galactic standards, an impressive species. 8 feet tall with 4 arms, chromatophore-laden skin, and a highly evolved central nervous system that allowed them to process information at twice the speed of most sentient beings. They were the undisputed tacticians of the Orion Spur, having conquered 17 systems with minimal casualties. So when Scout Vessel 459 discovered a small blue planet in an otherwise unremarkable solar system, the crew approached the mission with their usual methodical precision. Preliminary scans complete, Captain Vex Nay, reported Science Officer Quill. Planet shows signs of developing civilization, mostly concentrated in urban centers. Indigenous dominant species appears to be bipedal mammals. Captain Vex Nay's skin rippled with violet spots of curiosity. Visual analysis? A holographic projection materialized, showing humans going about their daily lives in various settings. Fascinating, Vex Nay commented. Note the physical characteristics: no claws, minimal body hair, blunt teeth, soft skin. Clearly herbivores. Possibly domesticated by a superior species we haven't detected yet? Unlikely, Captain, Quill replied. They appear to be the builders of these primitive structures. Though I'm baffled how such physiologically disadvantaged creatures manage to become dominant. Vex Nay made a clicking sound of dismissal. Probably no natural predators. Let's send down a recon drone for closer observation. Standard protocol, invisible to their primitive detection systems, of course. The drone descended toward a construction site in what humans called downtown Chicago. The target, a single specimen working alone, perfect for quick analysis and possible extraction. Jack Murphy was having a terrible Monday. First, his coffee maker broke. Then, his ex-wife called to remind him about alimony. Now he was operating a jackhammer on overtime because the regular guy called in sick. So when a shimmer in the air caught his attention, he was already in a mood foul enough to make a sailor blush. "The hell is that?" he muttered, squinting at the distortion hovering near his excavator. The Valaxian drone, designed to collect biological samples, extended a thin needle toward Jack's arm. Unfortunately for interstellar diplomacy, Jack Murphy had spent 15 years in construction and had developed reflexes that would make a cat jealous. He swung the jackhammer like a baseball bat. The specimen exhibits unexpected aggression. The drone operator aboard the scout ship yelped as warning lights flashed across his console. And considerable strength. The drone crashed into a cement mixer, its cloaking technology failing spectacularly. It now appeared as what it was, a floating metal orb covered in sampling equipment that looked suspiciously like torture devices to human eyes. Jack Murphy, a veteran of 2 bar fights and 1 nasty divorce, did what came naturally. He grabbed a nearby wrench and charged. Drone critically damaged. The operator shrieked, initiating emergency extraction. Too late. Jack's wrench connected with the drone's main sensor array, sending it spinning into a stack of steel pipes. Something inside it made a concerning whining noise before the entire unit exploded in a flash of blue light that vaporized half the cement mixer. "Holy shit," Jack yelled, diving behind his excavator as fragments of alien technology rained down around him. Aboard the scout ship, chaos erupted. The herbivore destroyed our drone. Captain Vex Nay's skin flashed crimson with alarm. How is that possible? It shouldn't have the mental capacity to recognize our technology, let alone the physical strength to damage it. Captain, we're detecting communications activity. The specimen is using a primitive device to alert others. On Earth, Jack Murphy was indeed on his phone, his voice rising with each word. "I'm telling you, Frank, it's some kind of military drone or something. It tried to stab me. Then it blew up the damn cement mixer." Within an hour, the construction site was swarming with police, FBI agents, and men in black suits who claimed to be from the Department of Transportation but definitely weren't. "The creatures are organizing," Quill reported nervously. "They appear to have some rudimentary command structure." "Retreat to orbit," Captain Vex Nay ordered. "We need to report this to High Command. These herbivores are unexpected." As the scout ship accelerated away from Earth, Vexnay couldn't shake the disturbing image of Jack Murphy charging fearlessly toward advanced technology with nothing but a wrench. For a herbivore, it displayed remarkable predatory behavior. What they didn't know was that humans were about to redefine everything the Valaxians thought they knew about civilians and warfare. The Grand Strategy Chamber of the Valaxian Empire was an imposing sight. Curved walls of polished obsidian rose hundreds of feet toward a transparent dome, showing the star-filled vastness of space. In the center, a circular table surrounded a holographic projection of Earth, currently being observed by the 15 members of the High Military Council. Admiral Krilzax, Supreme Commander of the Valaxian Expansion Forces, paced around the table, all four of his arms clasped behind his back. His skin flickered between patterns of deep blue determination and flashes of predatory yellow. "So what you're telling me, Captain Vex N.A., he rumbled, is that a single unarmed herbivore destroyed one of our most advanced reconnaissance drones using primitive tools?" Captain Vexnay's skin had been stuck in an embarrassed mole for the entire debriefing. "That is correct, Admiral. The creature showed unexpected aggression and problem-solving capabilities." "Fascinating," interjected Grand Biologist Zenth. "Perhaps they evolved from a prey species that developed tool use as a compensation for physical weakness? A curious evolutionary path." "Regardless," Admiral Krilzax continued, "the planet's resources are substantial. Rare minerals, abundant water, diverse biosphere, all valuable assets for the Empire. The question is merely tactical. How do we most efficiently subjugate these? What did you call them?" "Humans, Admiral," replied Vexnay. "Humans," Krilzax repeated, the words sounding oddly flat in Valaxian phonetics. "Show me their defensive capabilities." The hologram shifted to display Earth's military assets. Tanks, fighter jets, naval vessels, and infantry units appeared in rotating 3D models. Intelligence Officer Malk stepped forward, his skin displaying the confident green patterns of absolute certainty. "As you can see, Admiral, their technology is laughably primitive. Chemical propellants mostly. Crude atomics. No energy weapons, no gravitational manipulation, no faster-than-light capabilities. Their most advanced computers would struggle to operate a Valaxian waste recycling unit." "And their social structure?" Krilzax inquired. "Highly inefficient," Malk continued. "They organize into arbitrary nations that frequently conflict with each other. No unified planetary defense. Most importantly, only a small percentage, less than 0.5%, are actual warriors. The rest are simply civilians." The word civilians caused ripples of amusement to cascade across the skin of every council member. In Valaxian culture, where every citizen underwent mandatory military training from hatching, the concept of non-combatants was almost comically foreign. "They separate their population into warriors and non-warriors?" questioned Sub-Admiral Plex, his skin patterns revealing his confusion. "What do the others do during conflict?" "Hide, apparently," Malk answered, generating more ripples of amusement. "They have designated civilian shelters and evacuation routes. It's as if they purposely leave most of their population defenseless." Admiral Krilzax's skin settled into the determined indigo of decision-making. "This will be the easiest conquest in Imperial history. A single battle fleet should suffice. Standard protocol: neutralize military installations first, then establish control centers and population hubs." "Who will lead the invasion, Admiral?" asked one of the council members. All eyes turned to Commander Plex Tor, whose reputation for swift and decisive victories was unmatched in the Empire. Plex Tor's skin glowed with patterns of confidence bordering on arrogance. "I volunteer, Admiral," Plex Tor said, rising from his seat. "My 7th Tactical Division can secure this Earth in under one rotation of their planet. These humans will make excellent subjects for our mining operations." "Very well, Commander," Admiral Krilzax nodded. "The 7th Tactical is yours to command. Remember, we want the planet intact. Minimize infrastructure damage." "And the humans themselves?" Plex Tor inquired. "Standard processing," the Admiral replied with a dismissive wave. "Identify any potentially useful specimens for research, neutralize their warriors, and prepare the rest for labor assignment. As the meeting adjourned, Intelligence Officer Mock approached Commander Plex Tor with a data crystal. The complete intelligence package on human capabilities, Commander. Though I doubt you'll need it. Their warriors are few and poorly equipped compared to our forces. Plex Tor accepted the crystal with a confident skin flash. I've conquered species with genuine defenses, Mock. These humans divided, technologically primitive, mostly non-combatants will barely qualify as a military operation. As he strode from the chamber, Plex Tor was already mentally composing his victory speech. After all, how difficult could it be to subjugate a planet of soft, clawless herbivores who didn't even train their entire population for war? The answer, as the Valaxians would soon discover, was extremely. Dawn broke over North America just as the Valaxian invasion fleet emerged from hyperspace. 20 warships arranged in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming in the early morning sunlight. Commander Plex Tor stood on the bridge of the flagship, the inevitable Victory, watching with satisfaction as his tactical display showed human military bases around the globe. Begin Phase 1, he ordered. Precision strikes on military installations, communication centers, and government facilities. Minimal collateral damage. Across Earth, Valaxian strike craft descended through the atmosphere, their advanced weaponry making short work of military bases, airports, and naval facilities. In Washington, D.C., the Pentagon was surrounded by a containment field. In Beijing, the Central Military Commission headquarters went dark as EMP devices neutralized all electronics. Similar scenes played out in Moscow, London, and other capitals. First wave complete, Commander, reported his second-in-command. 87% of identified military infrastructure neutralized or contained. Human response is disorganized and ineffective. Plex Tor's skin rippled with satisfaction. Excellent. Begin Phase 2. Deploy ground forces to secure major population centers. Remember, these are mostly non-combatants. Minimal resistance expected. In downtown Seattle, a Valaxian troop transport materialized above Pioneer Square. As its doors opened, 20 elite Valaxian warriors descended on gravity platforms, their exoskeletons gleaming and weapons primed. Their target, secure the city center and establish a command post. The squad leader, Lieutenant Grax, surveyed the scene with contempt. Humans were fleeing in all directions, exactly as expected from herbivores. Spread out, he ordered. Standard containment formation. What happened next would later be described in the official Valaxian report as tactically improbable. A city bus, deliberately accelerated to maximum speed, plowed directly into 3 Valaxian soldiers before they could activate their personal shields. The driver, 62-year-old Doris Kincaid, had been operating Seattle transit vehicles for 38 years and had decided she wasn't about to let some overgrown lobsters take her city. Simultaneously, the owner of a nearby construction site turned his crane toward the Valaxian transport and released a suspended steel beam. The massive piece of metal crashed into the ship's propulsion system, sending it careening into Elliott Bay. "We're taking fire," Lieutenant Graxex shouted, his skin flashing emergency patterns from everywhere. Indeed, from windows, doorways, rooftops, and alleys, Seattle residents were launching an astonishing array of improvised attacks. A bartender was throwing bottles of high-proof alcohol with flaming rags. A group of college students had fashioned a makeshift catapult from a dumpster. Most concerning of all, a middle-aged woman in a business suit was methodically picking off Valaxian troops with remarkable accuracy using what their intelligence had classified as a recreational projectile weapon. Similar reports flooded in from around the globe. In Mumbai, taxi drivers formed a vehicular barricade that trapped Valaxian forces in narrow streets. In Rio de Janeiro, a carnival float was repurposed as a battering ram. In London, an elderly gardener disabled a Valaxian scout walker by strategically pruning its hydraulic lines with hedge trimmers. At Stanford University, Dr. Elena Rodriguez was having what she would later describe as a really inconvenient apocalypse. The astrophysicist had been in the middle of important research when the invasion began. Rather than evacuate, she'd stayed in her lab, furiously analyzing data from the Valaxian ships. The spectral analysis doesn't lie, she muttered to herself, reviewing readings on her tablet. Their shield technology relies on polarized energy states, which means her eyes widened. Oh my God, they're vulnerable to simple electromagnetic disruption. She grabbed her phone, which miraculously still had service, and began sending messages to every scientist and engineer in her contact list. Meanwhile, aboard the inevitable Victory, Commander Plex Tor was receiving increasingly concerning reports. What do you mean civilians are resisting? He demanded, his skin now mottled with confused patterns. They're non-warriors. They should be hiding or surrendering. Sir, his communications officer replied, I'm getting reports of humans using vehicles as weapons, construction equipment, chemical compounds, even primitive projectile tools. And they're coordinating somehow, despite our communications blackout. Impossible, Plex Tor snapped. Our intelligence was clear. Less than 0.5% of their population has warrior training. A tactical officer approached cautiously, his skin pale with distress. Commander, we may have misunderstood something fundamental about human society. Explain, Plex Tor demanded. Sir, it appears that what humans call civilians doesn't mean what we thought it meant. They're not non-combatants in the Valaxian sense. They're just not officially designated warriors. As if to punctuate this revelation, a proximity alarm sounded. Somehow, someone on Earth had managed to launch a repurposed satellite directly at the inevitable Victory's command module. Plex Tor stared at the tactical display, watching as red dots indicating Valaxian casualties multiplied across every theater of operation. His skin darkened to the deep purple of tactical reassessment. We may need to reconsider our approach, he admitted reluctantly. Marcus Williams had been enjoying retirement. After 35 years teaching physical education at Lincoln High School, he'd settled into a comfortable routine of morning jogs, afternoon naps, and evening television. The alien invasion had thoroughly disrupted this schedule, which annoyed him far more than it frightened him. All right, people, gather around, he called out to the diverse group assembled in the high school gymnasium. Let's talk strategy. The impromptu resistance cell consisted of whoever had made it to the school after the initial attack, a handful of teachers, some parents, teenagers, and neighborhood residents. They looked to Marcus not because he had military experience, he didn't, but because 35 years of controlling hormonal teenagers had given him an unshakable air of authority. Ms. Patel, what's our inventory look like? Marcus asked the chemistry teacher. Indira Patel consulted her clipboard. We've got standard chemistry lab supplies, athletic equipment, workshop tools, 3 buses in the parking lot, and whatever people brought from home, which includes 6 hunting rifles, 12 handguns, 1 crossbow, and Gary's nail gun collection, added Dave Johnson, the shop teacher. Marcus nodded. And our intel? 16-year-old Kevin Wu raised his hand. The aliens are setting up some kind of command center at the mall. I've been monitoring their movements using the drone from the robotics club. Marcus smiled. This was exactly like organizing the annual field day, just with higher stakes. Okay, here's what we're going to do. Ms. Patel, I need you and your AP chemistry students working on anything that might disrupt those fancy shields of theirs. Dave, weaponize whatever you can from the shop. Kevin, keep that drone in the air, we need eyes. Everyone else, we're going to run drills. Drills? Asked a confused parent. Like military drills? Marcus laughed. No, like dodgeball drills. Trust me, if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge alien energy beams. Within hours, the high school had transformed into a resistance headquarters. Chemistry students were producing improvised EMP devices based on information shared through a surprisingly resilient network of scientists communicating via ham radio. The shop class was converting leaf blowers into debris launchers. Parents were retrofitting buses with makeshift armor plating. Meanwhile, across town, a squad of Valaxian soldiers was having the worst day of their military careers. The tactical manual said nothing about this. Lieutenant Zorg complained as he ducked behind a flipped car. That human hit me with a bag of burning excrement. At least you didn't get the sticky yellow substance, replied Sergeant Kex, trying desperately to remove what was actually mustard from his sensory appendages. It's blocking my olfactory receptors. How are they everywhere at once? Wondered another soldier. We neutralized their warriors. The Valaxians had indeed neutralized the official military bases. What they hadn't counted on was discovering that Earth's civilian population included ex-military veterans who kept their skills sharp, hunters who could track and shoot with remarkable precision, engineers who quickly figured out alien technology weaknesses, healthcare workers who understood exactly where Valaxian anatomy was most vulnerable, teenagers who could reconfigure technology faster than the aliens could adapt, grandmothers who turned out to be surprisingly good at improvised explosive devices. In Chicago, Jack Murphy, the construction worker from First Contact, had organized his entire union into a formidable fighting force. Construction equipment turned out to be remarkably effective against alien technology when operated by people who knew exactly how to maximize impact force. Hit them where the armor joins. Jack shouted as a colleague swung a wrecking ball into a Valaxian walker. They can't reinforce every seam. In Silicon Valley, Dr. Elena Rodriguez had turned her university into a technological resistance hub. Her breakthrough regarding electromagnetic disruption had spread globally, and now humans everywhere were repurposing microwave ovens, radio equipment, and power tools to create devices that played havoc with Valaxian systems. Their neural interfaces are sensitive to particular frequencies, she explained to a group of electrical engineering students. Basically, we can give them the world's worst migraine with modified speakers. In rural areas, farmers were using their intimate knowledge of the land to set traps, creating false paths that led Valaxian scouts into sinkholes or irrigation ditches. Hunters were employing their tracking skills to monitor alien movements and disrupt supply lines. Back at the invasion headquarters, Commander Plex Tor was facing the most humiliating briefing of his career. "Let me understand this correctly," he said, his skin now a mottled pattern of stress and confusion. "Our forces have been repelled by construction workers, teachers, farmers, and children, sir," added his increasingly nervous aide. "The small humans are particularly problematic. They're fitting into ventilation systems and planting disruptive devices in our equipment. But they're not warriors," Plex Tor insisted, slamming all four fists on his tactical table. "Sir, I think that's the problem," the intelligence officer ventured carefully. "Our definition of warrior doesn't align with human capabilities. They don't separate their population into combat and non-combat categories the way we assumed. Their entire species seems to have an instinct for adaptive aggression." "Impossible," Plex Tor muttered, but with notably less conviction. "Sir, there's more," the intelligence officer continued. "We've intercepted their communications. They're sharing information, resistance techniques, weapon modifications, tactical assessments. It's like their entire species is one massive self-organizing military think tank." Plex Tor stared at the global map, showing Valaxian positions being systematically compromised across the planet. His skin slowly shifted to the dark blue of dawning comprehension. "They're not herbivores, are they?" he asked quietly. "No, sir," replied the intelligence officer. "Further analysis shows they're omnivores with predatory ancestry, persistence hunters. And they've applied those same evolutionary traits to warfare. And these civilians, essentially untrained warriors, sir, but with the critical distinction that they don't know they're supposed to be helpless." As if to punctuate this revelation, an alert sounded indicating that humans had breached the perimeter of yet another command post, this time using what appeared to be repurposed ice cream trucks playing disruptive frequencies. For the first time in his decorated military career, Commander Plex Tor felt something unfamiliar ripple across his skin, the pale yellow pattern of fear. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood before a packed auditorium of the most unusual military council in Earth's history. Present were not generals or admirals, but individuals representing the full spectrum of human ingenuity: engineers, hackers, construction foremen, chemistry teachers, automotive mechanics. and even a renowned chef who had discovered that certain cooking techniques could produce compounds that adhered to Valaxian exoskeletons like superglue. The electromagnetic disruption tactics are working, Elena explained, pointing to a makeshift map showing Valaxian positions retreating across multiple continents. But they're adapting. We need to coordinate our next moves globally. Marcus Williams, the retired gym teacher who had emerged as an unlikely tactical leader, nodded in agreement. Their technology is superior, but they think like a hive mind. Everything by the book. We need to keep being unpredictable. I've been analyzing their command structure, added a teenager who, before the invasion, had been primarily known for hacking his school's grading system. They're completely hierarchical. If we take out their leadership, the rest get disoriented. Jack Murphy, still carrying his trusty wrench, leaned forward. So we go after this Commander Plex Torfella? How do we even get to him? He's on that big mothership. Elena smiled. That's where my team comes in. We've reverse-engineered their teleportation technology. It's actually simpler than it looks, basically advanced quantum entanglement. We can't move many people, but we can get a small strike team aboard. The plan was audacious, a coordinated global push to distract the Valaxian forces while a strike team teleported aboard the flagship to capture or neutralize Commander Plex Tor. The components of the plan reflected humanity's unique approach to problem-solving. 1. Hackers would flood Valaxian communications with contradictory information. 2. Chemists would deploy compounds that rendered their sensory systems unreliable. 3. Engineers would trigger electromagnetic pulses to disrupt their neural interfaces. 4. Construction and transportation workers would use heavy equipment to damage ground forces. 5. And most impressively, grandmothers worldwide had organized a knitting network that had somehow created signal-blocking fabrics that rendered the wearer invisible to Valaxian scanners. Meanwhile, aboard the inevitable Victory, Commander Plex Tor was experiencing what humans would call an existential crisis. His skin had been stuck in a confused pattern of swirling colors for hours as he tried to comprehend how the surely soon-to-be glorious invasion had gone so catastrophically wrong. We've lost another ground division, reported his increasingly haggard tactical officer. The humans lured them into a commercial food preparation facility, and, well, sir, they weaponized the refrigeration systems. How? Plex Tor asked weakly, already dreading the answer. They created a temperature differential that caused our troops' exoskeletons to contract at different rates, sir. Essentially, they cracked them like what humans call shellfish. Plex Tor struggled to maintain his composure. And our Southern Hemisphere operations? The humans in the region called Australia have been particularly creative, sir. They've employed indigenous knowledge to create traps we cannot detect and have weaponized local wildlife against our forces. Wildlife? Plex Tor asked incredulously. They're commanding animals now? No, sir. They're just introducing our troops to them and watching what happens naturally. A sudden alarm blared through the command center. Intrusion detected in Teleportation Bay 7, announced the security system. Impossible, Plex Tor exclaimed. Humans don't have teleportation technology. On the security feed, a small group of humans materialized in the teleportation bay. Leading them was Jack Murphy, wrench in hand. Beside him stood Dr. Elena Rodriguez carrying what appeared to be a modified satellite dish, and Marcus Williams equipped with what Valaxian intelligence would later incorrectly identify as a ceremonial combat staff. It was a baseball bat. Seal all bulkheads. Plex Tor ordered, deploy internal security drones. But the humans moved with unexpected efficiency through the ship. Dr. Rodriguez's device disabled security systems with targeted electromagnetic pulses. Marcus Williams demonstrated techniques for disabling Valaxian troops that he'd apparently developed for breaking up cafeteria fights. And Jack Murphy was doing what construction workers do best, taking things apart with extreme prejudice. As alarms blared throughout the ship, Plex Tor's skin displayed the unmistakable pattern of a commander who realized he had catastrophically underestimated his enemy. The pattern had a name in Valaxian military culture, roughly translating to, "The prey has teeth." "Sir," his second-in-command ventured cautiously, "perhaps we should consider a strategic withdrawal to reassess the situation?" Before Plex Tor could respond, the doors to the command center burst open, and Jack Murphy stepped through, wrench raised and a determined grin on his face. "Knock, knock," he said. "Hope I'm not interrupting anything important." The standoff in the command center of the inevitable victory would later be immortalized in human art, literature, and at least 17 major motion pictures, none of which got the details quite right. On one side stood Commander Plex Tor, his skin cycling through patterns of rage, confusion, and reluctant admiration. On the other stood Jack Murphy, a construction worker from Chicago who had never imagined that his expertise in dismantling things would one day be applied to an alien invasion. "You've lost, Commander," Jack said, gesturing with his trusty wrench toward the view screen showing Valaxian forces in retreat worldwide. "Might want to call it a day before more of your people get hurt." Dr. Elena Rodriguez stepped forward, her modified satellite dish humming ominously. "We've transmitted the specifications for this electromagnetic disruptor to every country on Earth. Your neural interfaces won't function in our atmosphere anymore." Marcus Williams twirled his baseball bat with the casual expertise of someone who'd broken up thousands of schoolyard fights. "Also, turns out you fellas have an awful lot of joints in those exoskeletons. Real structural weakness, if you ask me." Plex Tor's skin finally settled into a uniform blue, the Valaxian equivalent of resignation. "How?" he asked simply. "You're not a warrior species. Your planet has no unified defense. Most of your population has no combat training." Jack laughed. "See, that's where you got it all wrong. Humans don't need to be soldiers to fight. We're problem solvers," Elena added. "It's what we do. When you presented us with the problem of an alien invasion, we solved it," Marcus finished with a shrug, "using whatever tools we had available." Plex Tor looked at the three humans before him, a construction worker, a scientist, and a retired gym teacher, and finally understood the fundamental error in Valaxian intelligence. They had classified humans based on official roles rather than inherent capabilities. They had mistaken specialization for limitation. "I propose terms for our withdrawal," Plex Tor said, his voice heavy with the weight of unprecedented defeat. "We will leave your solar system and mark it as off-limits to future Valaxian expansion." "And?" Jack prompted, raising his wrench slightly. "And we will acknowledge Earth as a sovereign system with all rights recognized under the Galactic Charter," Plex Tor added quickly. "Deal," Jack said. "But we're keeping some of your ships, for research purposes." Elena smiled. "And we'll need access to your star charts. Since we're apparently part of a galactic community now, we should know who our neighbors are." Marcus stepped forward. "One more thing. You're going to help us clean up this mess. Seems only fair." The formal surrender ceremony was conducted on the White House lawn 3 days later. As Commander Plex Tor signed the document acknowledging Earth's victory and sovereignty, news crews broadcast the event globally. Humanity had not only repelled an alien invasion but had done so primarily with what the Valaxians had dismissively called civilians. 6 months later, a special session of the Galactic Council convened to discuss the Earth incident. Admiral Krill Zax, now facing the equivalent of a court-martial for the failed invasion, presented his findings to the assembled representatives of 200 spacefaring civilizations. In conclusion, he stated, his skin displaying the humble pattern of hard-learned wisdom, "We recommend reclassifying humans from herbivorous tool users to apex predators with tools. Their planet should be designated a Class 5 hazard zone. And all non-diplomatic contact should be preceded by extensive cultural exchange and clear communication of peaceful intent." A representative from the Arcturian Confederation raised a limb. "Are they truly that dangerous? They have no energy weapons, no faster-than-light travel, no unified government." Admiral Krill Zax's skin flashed a pattern that translated roughly as "you sweet summer child." "What they lack in technology, they more than compensate for in adaptability and sheer aggressive problem-solving," he explained. "The most concerning of all, They don't differentiate between warriors and non-warriors in the way most species do. Every human is potentially a combatant if threatened. Their civilians dismantled our most advanced military technology using tools designed for food preparation and habitat construction. The council chambers filled with the equivalent of murmurs from various species. Furthermore, Krillzax continued, they have now reverse-engineered significant portions of our technology. Intelligence suggests they will achieve independent faster than light capability within 5 years. Not the 50 we initially projected. On Earth, humanity was already looking to the stars with new understanding. The Valaxian technology had accelerated human development by centuries. International cooperation, born of necessity during the invasion, continued as a new United Earth government took its first tentative steps. At a small ceremony in Chicago, Jack Murphy was being honored for his role in the resistance. After receiving his medal, he was approached by a reporter. "Mr. Murphy, you're being called the hero of first contact. How does it feel?" Jack chuckled, patting the wrench that now hung ceremonially at his belt. "I'm still just a construction worker. Did what anyone would do when some fancy alien tries to stick a needle in you. But you led the final assault on the alien flagship. You negotiated the surrender terms." "Yeah, well," Jack shrugged. "Turns out taking things apart is a pretty universal skill. And negotiating? Heck, I deal with building inspectors and permit offices every day. Alien commander wasn't nearly as tough." As Jack walked away from the ceremony, his phone buzzed. It was a message from Dr. Rodriguez. "Jack, we finished analyzing the Valaxian star charts. You won't believe what's out there. Meeting tomorrow at 0900. Bring your wrench." Jack smiled. Humanity had found its place in the galaxy, and it wasn't as the conquered or even as warriors. It was as humans, adaptable, resourceful, and impossible to categorize. In the vast database of the Galactic Council, Earth now bore a simple but respectful warning label: "Caution, contains humans." There are no civilians here.